I'm going to start by giving you a quick overview on what my workflow is from go to whoa, from start to finish. Each of these steps we'll go into in detail in the following courses, but this is just an overview to kind of get your head around sort of the whole process from a high level perspective. So first thing we do is get all the footage off the cameras, put them on our file structure, put them on our folder and make sure they're all there. Now, the only step I really do as far as editing anything before I even open DaVinci Resolve is I grab all my WAV files. So if you are creating a separate WAV file, I grab all those and I do a quick edit on those just to make sure they're in the right format. So on the GoPro, they'll be recorded with 4 channels and I only want mono, right? So I just basically do a big bulk update across all of them to convert them into mono and save them into a separate folder. And then I also just normalize all the volume levels so they're all kind of at the same level for loudness. So I do all of that before I bring it into DaVinci Resolve. So then we open DaVinci Resolve, we import everything into DaVinci using the folder structure that we've already created. So then we're kind of half organized. Then it's about just updating any of those bins. I go through and I tag everything with what's there. So I basically tag all the cameras, just set the camera name and all that sort of stuff to whichever camera. So the next thing I do is create a Word document. And I'm just opening up a document where I'm going to then be plotting out what the whole video is about and what scenes are going to be in it. That process helps me determine, what really is there and what my story is and what this video is about. So while doing that, we're then tagging all the videos with those scenes so we know where we're up to. From there, once we've kind of got everything arranged as far as scenes and we know what we're doing with each of those, I'll then start to build out the story. So using that script, we'll then build timelines for each of those scenes. One method we'll use is to build out a timeline based on story beats. And that might be put to music. It might be that it's just a quick sort of 30-second, 1-minute transition from one big scene to the next big scene. And then I've got the other method with scenes, with our bigger scenes where I'm actually cutting it down by, cutting out all the pieces, and we might use multi-cameras and stuff like that for those. So that's sort of the big thing. Then we're doing pass-throughs each of the scenes, make sure each scene makes sense, make sure it flows nicely, it's not boring. Then we're going to do what we call the first assembly, which is to put all those scenes onto a main sequence where we look at the whole video and watch it through and make sure the whole video flows nicely and it looks good and of course ensuring it makes sense and doesn't get boring again. Then we're going to go into, once we're happy with the structure of the video and the stories and so on, and all of it is primarily there and it's ready as a story to tell, then we'll go through and we'll add graphics, we'll add color, and we'll do some adjustments in color, we'll add music, we'll add titles, and do all those bits and pieces to tweak to make sure that we've got something that tells the story that we want to tell. We might go and add some mapping and all those little bits and pieces. I don't worry about any of the graphics or any of the color until I've done the initial timelines and I've got that first assembly and I'm happy with the story that we ended up with. If you then go and do color and audio and spend too much time sort of tweaking and making sure everything's perfect before you've done that final structure, then you'll spend forever tweaking all these things that you end up deleting anyway. So there's no reason to do that. So all the graphics, color, audio, all that sort of stuff is all done after we've created our main structure. Then of course we then export, and I'll do a main export, which is, creating the main video and uploading it into YouTube. But then I'll go and create social content by grabbing all the little bits and pieces from that main video. So from that one big video, we'll probably end up creating half a dozen to a dozen other smaller 1-minute videos, which we're then going to use on social. Then we'll export screenshots, a big bulk of screenshots, which we then curate and go through, and we're going to use those for social as well. So we've used that again big piece of content creates many, many, many small pieces of content. We might end up with 20, 30, 40, 50 images that we can then share on Instagram and stuff like that. And then of course we then tidy everything up and delete our files that we don't no longer need and keep the ones that we do want to keep, backing everything up along the way. And that's it. That's the workflow from go to woe, start to finish, whatever you want to call it. And it's a process that is easy to follow, it's repeatable, and it's straightforward and it's simple. That's the process that works for me. That's my workflow. I'm not saying you need to follow that exact workflow. You'll come up with your own workflow, right? You'll come up with a workflow that works for you. You'll come up with a workflow that suits the amount of time that you have available to do this, suits your style, the way you shoot, everything. Everyone's going to have a different workflow. One workflow does not suit every person. You've got to design your own, design one that works for you, and design one that makes you happy. Design one that makes this enjoyable to do. You don't want to use a workflow that actually is a chore, is difficult, is going to slow you down, and one that you would just find a bit of a pain in the ass. You don't want that. You want a workflow that you enjoy following.